If you haven't already seen this, an Army helicopter collided with an American Airlines jet and crashed into the Potomac River in DC on Wednesday night, right? There were 60 passengers on the American Airlines. They call it jet, but I call it a plane, honey. There were 60 people on the passengers on the plane and 4 crew members. So 64 people in total in the American Airlines plane. And there were 3 people in the Army helicopter. All of those individuals died due to this collision, right? And it's the more you learn about it, it's actually so devastating, right? So, like I mentioned, I think as of our recording here, they've recovered like 40 bodies. But everyone died. So yes, they're recovering these bodies, but there's like no hope that anyone survived because I think we've mentioned this in prior episodes, it's been extremely cold here in the Northeast. And so, let alone the impact of the crash, like it doesn't matter if you knew how to swim or whatever. The fact that river was so cold, like, you know what I mean? Like your body was just not going to survive that. And it's so devastating. There was a lot of US figure skaters on this flight that was coming from Kansas, I believe. I have it here. The flight was arriving from Wichita, Kansas into the DC area, and there was several US figure skating members on the flight because they were returning from participating in a figure skating championship, and also they were hosting like a camp or whatever. So there's several young people, regardless of the age, you know what I'm saying? It's still devastating. Like no one was expecting this. The last thing you think, like people take flights all the time. Flights are supposed to be extremely safe, and the chances of things like this happening is 0 to none, right? But there was so many young people, families, like the stories, like after the news broke, people started speaking out about like, oh, my wife was on this flight, like this is the last performance that these figure skaters did before they got onto this flight and they passed away. So it's just extremely, extremely heartbreaking. And so when all this news happened, everyone, in my opinion, with a heart and common sense, would just focus on the families. You know what I mean? And like, how can we help them? Because at the end of the day, obviously, grief is going to be so hard. You're never going to get your family back. And it's just like an unexpected death like this is just horrific, right? So Donald Trump, this happened Wednesday night. So on Thursday morning, Donald Trump, the president, said that he was going to host a press conference. So the press conference starts, and I think the first 2 minutes were where I feel like he should have did it. Cut off like if I was the press secretary, I would have dragged him out of the press room after the first 2 minutes of the thing. Because he was just talking about like, our hearts go out to them, like the American people will take them with warm arms, like like all of this good things that we look to as the leader of America. And then after he talks about that, what happened, he kind of broke down what I showed you. Do you want to show the video of the Army helicopter?
Yeah, so I'll show the news clip and then we'll show the Trump response.
Well, let me speak a little bit before we show Trump. Yeah.
Okay.
At Reagan National Airport after an American Airlines plane collided with a helicopter and crashed into the Potomac River. Now, video of the crash appears to have been captured on this Earth cam. The bright lights heading straight for the camera, circled in red, is an American Airlines CRJ 700 regional jet. Then in blue, in that circle that you see traveling from the left to the right of the screen, you can see what the FAA says is a Black Hawk helicopter colliding into the airliner mid-air.
So as you can see, they're just like horrific, like scary moment. So Donald Trump gets on the podium and starts talking about how after he gives this little 2 minute that I'm thinking, wow, like I can't even believe this is coming from Donald Trump's mouth. He starts talking about how diversity, equity, and inclusion is the reason why this happened. He's talking about obviously I'm paraphrasing, this is not word for word, but he's essentially talking about how, because the word DEI I feel like it's thrown around a lot and people don't know what DEI is. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. It doesn't just mean like people of color. It also means people that have disabilities, right? Like inclusion. We're including people that may not, that are usually like left behind because, oh, well, they have a disability. So you think that they can't do certain things, which is not true. Which is why programs like these were made, because we want to make sure that everyone feels included in the community and the country that they are also a part of, right? So anyways, he's saying that because of Barack Obama, he started mentioning Obama and Biden because of DEI initiatives that they implemented to make sure that, people that may have disabilities are also trained up to be, a part of the aviation or whatever you want to be a part of, that they are included. He's saying that because of those initiatives, this accident occurred.
So
but play the videos. These are just a few clips, seconds of like the whole full-blown rant that he went on.
The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite. The FAA website shows that the agency's guidance on diversity hiring were last updated on March 23rd of 22. They wanted to make it even more so. And then I came in, and I assume maybe this is the reason. The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit. The Department of Transportation, his government agency charged with regulating civil aviation. Well, he runs it, 45,000 people, and he's run it right into the ground with his diversity. So I had to say that it's terrible. Then it's a group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately.
And then this is
when someone from Sky News clocked his tea, because he was, before you play the video, because he was, before there was any investigation done, he's already saying that because there was DEI initiatives, this happened. And this Sky News reporter is like, well, play the clip.
Yeah.
Mr. President, you have today blamed the diversity elements, but then told us that you weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. We then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
Shayla, before you go, first off, I want to preface this by saying my heart goes out to the families that literally lost loved ones in an unexpected crash. That was not supposed to happen, but clearly we can acknowledge that something went wrong, because that is not something that happens every day.
Right?
I cannot imagine my sister, brother, friend, family member sitting on that plane and they're gone. And I hear the leader of the free world open his mouth and say, diversity, equity, and inclusion are the reason for this crash. What are you talking about? I literally don't understand how we can get there. Right. And the reporter who clocked him, it was like, so how can you say that? Like, Trump said with his own mouth, because I know a lot of his supporters going to watch this and think that they can. Well, that's not what he said. He clearly said in that video, this is under investigation. If this is under investigation, how can you sit there, open your mouth and say DEI was the cause? What are you talking about? Details are still coming out. People are still trying to figure out what exactly went wrong. And you talking about, if I was Obama, I'd be like what he's like, that 50 Cent me, like, what he say 450 for? Like, what do I have to do with this? Like, are you not the current president? So be present. Talk about the current issue. You talking about DEI. And like, the thing that irritates me the most is that you get on that podium and you talk about DEI, but you are not worried about the people that just DIE'd. Like, focus on that. Like, what are we talking about here? Give your condolences, say it's under investigation, and go about your day. But no, you want to have diarrhea out the mouth and just start talking about anything? That's ridiculous. I could not imagine my family member being in that type, like, passing away like that, and I hear the president talk about it was because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. 2 + 2 not equaling 4.
Yeah, and I think the thing that pisses me off more is that I know this is all a distraction, and you know how they be like, if you say a lie long enough, people will start to believe it. He wants to continue to bring up this whole diversity, equity, inclusion, and inclusion, because the more he continues to bring that up, the more people might start to believe that it is a problem. I hope and pray that people understand that that's not the fact, but I also thought that there was no way he could win again, and he did. So clearly he knows something that I don't. I also want to clock the fact that, according to the Associated Press, right, an article they posted January 21st, Donald Trump fired the heads of the Transportation Security Administration and Coast Guard before their terms ended. He also eliminated all members of a key aviation security advisory group, right? The group, right, this advisory group, right, didn't have, or because it was terminated, right, they won't have any members to carry out the work of examining safety issues at airlines and airports. So it is all a distraction, right? It's not a diversity, equity, and inclusion. I hope everyone understands that. This man, before, he has been signing executive orders since that man was, whatever they call it, put into office, whatever the oath, whatever. He has been signing executive orders from then. I don't know if there's like a limit. I hope there's a limit of executive orders, because he gonna run through all of them. He fired people that were a part of aviation. And if you don't know what aviation is, it has something to do with the airplanes, with the airplane travel situation, right? So instead of talking about that and clocking that tea, he want to talk about stuff that was happening way back when. Number 2, this whole idea, again, we mentioned it in our prior episode. Diversity, equity, and inclusion does not mean that we're giving opportunities to people, whether it means people with disabilities, people, minorities, people of color. It does not mean that they're just handing out jobs. Hey, ¿quién quiere un trabajo? Who wants a job? Oh, you black? Come here. Oh, you in a wheelchair? Oh, honey, this is the job for you. We're not doing that. That's not what is happening. And the third point I want to make is, no tea, no shade, but Donald Trump is the last person that should be talking about earning spots or having the skills or having the qualifications, because he is the first president to ever be a convicted felon. You know what I'm saying? He is a convicted felon. He was found guilty of falsifying business records to cover up a sex scandal that threatened to derail his 2016 presidential campaign, right? A jury also found him liable for sexually abusing an advice columnist by the name of E. Jean Carroll in 1996, a year before I was even born. Okay, he was found liable. This is not making it up. That they went through the courts. Okay. Also, he wants RFK Jr. to be like, I don't know the exact term, but all these people that he is putting or like is picking to be a part of his cabinet are unqualified individuals. So before you start to clock other people's tea, clock your own. You know what I mean? Because we all know several people, and this is not an, and I guess I should have said this from the beginning. This is not to clock white people, because I feel like the white people that I have white friends, you know what I mean? Like, this is just more, it's just so hypocritical, because we've all seen white people get opportunities simply because of their proximity, their brother, their cousin, their aunt. They are in high positions, and therefore they get in. And you know what? Okay, to each their own. But God forbid there's ever 1% of extra, advantage or push to get us in. It's like, oh no, this could never happen. And I think it does sound kind of crazy, but I think they are so scared of like white people not being the majority that like, they cannot fathom that. Because you remember when the whole LeBron James situation happened? That's why I was like, yes, I'm a little bit mad, but also it's like white people do it all the time. I'm not saying Bronny James doesn't deserve to be there. Probably he doesn't. But how many other people do it and they get away with it and it's okay, but we can't do nothing. We could never.
I agree with you. And I just want to kind of piggyback off what you said. Like, I had a conversation, and Shayla was there, with our one friend who said that I was obsessed with basically hating on white people. I really don't care about y'all. I'm not going to lie to you.
Girl, it's not that she doesn't care about you.
It's not
That's
like,
not
it's like,
true.
I don't care about y'all's day to day like that. Like, when we are talking about basically the inequality and like where things are just unfair for people of color, I feel like the white people who get it, and the white people who don't. And it's just like, and that's the problem. We are speaking to the people who don't get it, because
there's a lot of them. That's the problem. That's why we're here.
And it's like, I'm not trying to make it seem like I'm bashing on y'all, dogging on y'all, because like, if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, figure it out. And that's the problem. Y'all don't know how to figure it out.
And I will also clock a lot of Latino conservatives, because it's not only white people. There are a lot of, as we saw in the past election, a lot of Latinos voted for Trump. And I am Latina, and I will always clock that T. I think there's also like a segment in me, or a portion that is like certain, not all, but some Trump supporters are just too far gone. Like, I try to tell the Latinos that I know that are stuck on Trump, I'm like, he does not like you. He does not like you. And even if like he only likes the Latinos that are wealthy, why would you want to represent or support someone that only is there for you if for what you have to offer? You know what I mean? Like, there are the Latinos that is like, okay, yes, you came here illegally. You probably had an aunt and uncle or someone that could make papers for you, but that's not everyone's truth. You know what I mean? Like, or the Latinos that forget where they came from. Okay, now you're wealthy, you have your home, you have all these opportunities, but where were you a few years from now? Just because you up now, you forget about all the struggles that you went through. It is super discouraging. So I don't ever want people to feel like, oh, it's just white people.
No.
I'm sorry. There's conservatives of all, and it's not even about being conservative. I think conservative and being a Trump supporter are different levels. Because I understand conservatives, you believe what you believe, okay. But I think the Trumpian of it all is what is really triggering for me.
Trumpian is crazy. But I agree with you. Like, I met a black person. Well, not a black person. I've met a few black people who said that they support Trump. And like, it never made sense to me, because I'm like, what are y'all talking about? And like, I've seen some people on like my social media who are like now speaking out like, oh, maybe I made a mistake voting on Trump after he decided to, we're going to talk about it later on in the show, but like freeze like federal, ka-ching, right? And like pause loans and things of that nature. And it's like, I don't understand. And I'm speaking for only me, because I can only speak for me, wrapping my head around the idea of supporting someone who does not care about you, literally does not care about you, would pay you dust, and you sitting there talking about something, you support him. So you're right. It's not just white people. It's there's always the one-offs.
Because they think it's not going to affect them. That's also another thing. It's like, oh, well, yes, he's coming for Latinos, but not my type of Latinos. He's coming for these type of Latinos. It's like, well, I don't care what Latinos he's coming from. I don't want you dragging or disrespecting my people. I don't care if you're the bougie Latinos, the middle class Latinos. If you come for my people, I feel like you coming for me too. And I'm just not going to accept that.